Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Govinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Govinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Govinda.
We are reading and studying the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela now, chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya in 5 features, text 89 to 90.
Shed, Kompo, Romanchashru, Godo Godo, Boiborno, Unmad, Bishad, Dhoirjo, Gorbo, Horsho, Doino, Ato Bhabe, Prema, Bhaktoganere Nachay, Krishner Anandamrit Shagore Bhashay.
Perspiration, trembling, standing of one's bodily hairs, tears, faltering, fading, madness, melancholy, patience, pride, joy, and humility. These are various natural symptoms of ecstatic love of Godhead, which cause a devotee to dance and float in an ocean of transcendental bliss while chanting the Mahamantra. Srila Jiva Goswami, in his Priti Sandarbha, verse 66, explains this stage of love of Godhead. Bhagavat Priti Rupa Vrittir Mayadimayi na bhavati Kintu Svarup Shaktyananda Rupa Yadananda Paradhina Shri Bhagavan Apiti. Similarly, in the 69th verse, he offers further explanation. Tad evam priter lakshanam chittadravas tasya cha romaharshadikam katanchij jate pi chittadrave romaharshadike vana ched ashaya shuddhis tadapi na bhakte samyag avirbhava iti gyapitam ashaya shuddhir nama chanya tatparya parityaga priti tatparyam cha ataiva nimitta swabhaviki cheti tad visheshanam. Transcendental love of Godhead is not under the jurisdiction of the material energy, for it is the transcendental bliss and pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Supreme Lord is also under the influence of transcendental bliss, when one comes in touch with such bliss in love of Godhead, one's heart melts, and the symptoms of this are standing of the hairs on end, etc. Sometimes a person thus melts and manifests these transcendental symptoms, yet at the same time is not well behaved in his personal transactions. This indicates that he has not yet reached complete perfection in devotional life. In other words, a devotee who dances in ecstasy, but after dancing and crying appears to be attracted to material affairs, has not yet reached the perfection of devotional service, which is called Ashaya Shuddhi, or the perfection of existence. One who attains the perfection of existence is completely averse to material enjoyment and engrossed in transcendental love of Godhead. It is therefore to be concluded that the ecstatic symptoms of Ashaya Shuddhi are visible when a devotee service has no material cause and is purely spiritual in nature. These are characteristics of transcendental love of Godhead, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Savai pungsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. That religion is best which causes its followers to become ecstatic in love of God, which is unmotivated and free from material impediments, for this only can completely satisfy the self. Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd Chapter, 6th Verse. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gatamayam Dadati Sha Pandantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya, in this verse here, is continuing to explain what to Prakashananda Saraswati, the leader of the Mayavadi sannyasis, the thousands of Mayavadi sannyasis in Benares or Kashi, about what his spiritual master told him about the chanting of the holy names and why he was chanting and dancing in the company of fanatics. So he's saying that, continuing to say, his spiritual master said that's actually what goes on. By nature, someone who becomes advanced in chanting the holy names of the Lord, naturally they chant, dance, and they exhibit a variety of ecstatic symptoms just by the influence of being associated with God by his through his holy name. Because the name of God and God, the name of Krishna and Krishna, are not different. That's what we mean by absolute. Absolute means there's no difference between the name and the object. So it's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada quotes here from Srila Jiva Goswami in elaborate fashion, and then the last part after that it's kind of translated there. And the first part point he makes is that love of Godhead is not under the jurisdiction of material energy, because it's the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We say, Golokera Premadhan Harinam Sankirtan. You know that verse from Narottam Das Thakur. From this chanting of the holy names of God, it's not something that somebody manufactured in the material world to as a jingle or a jingo. There are so many songs that you can hear that stick in your mind, take away your attention. But this in the material world, but this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is directly coming from the spiritual stratosphere. So therefore, if we can chant it, Premadhan Golokera, this is a treasure. If we can learn to chant it properly, there's unlimited transcendental pleasure that can be experienced by this chanting. And the symptoms of that are mentioned in this verse. Hairs on end, shivering, tears, faltering, fading, madness, etc. Just as this verse is very consistent with the prayer we just sang, Gauranga Bolite Habe. The devotee, in this case, in Narottam Das Thakur, is praying, when will it be that I have this transcendental experience of shivering just by chanting the name Gauranga? So this is a attitude when we chant. So it's not that we can just try to artificially shiver or cry. There's different situations where a person might cry artificially. Can you think of any?
In a movie.
Yeah, sure. Actors are expert at being able to cry even though they're not really unhappy, or they're not experiencing any kind of ecstasy, crying tears of ecstasy, but they know how to do it. Any others?
Kids,
That's right. They know how to cry to get what they want. So these tears here are not in those categories. They're completely transcendental, and they're not. It's not that a devotee tries to get those tears, but they're a natural result of spiritual advancement and being in touch with Krishna and his transcendental spiritual energy. And what's the symptom of someone who's actually, we sometimes find people who in a spiritual context, they may be shedding tears. And how do you know if it's real spiritual ecstasy or fake, like the being in the movie or being like a kid?
They go back to their material activities and are still attracted to the material.
Very good. Yes, very good. So yeah, there's still very much, there's attraction to the material energy, material activities. Srila Prabhupada used to say that he would see people who do the kirtan with great apparent ecstasy, and then afterwards the person would say, oh, now my throat is dry, I have to smoke bidis. My throat is dried up now. So This is not the symptom. And there's so many things like this. Even within the Hare Krishna movement, sometimes you can see that. I know for myself, I don't cry in ecstasy. But one time I had to take some kind of medicine for a some kind of fever, not COVID-19, but while I was did something to my digestive system, so at the drop of a hat I would cry. You know, anything, even chanting Hare Krishna too, I'd cry. But that wasn't spiritual ecstasy. That was just the influence of this drug on my consciousness. So sometimes we see that people may take intoxication, and somebody is intoxicated from alcohol or other things. It's very common that they laugh or they cry uncontrollably. But this is not spiritual by any means. It's a different thing. It's from the material energy. So another verse that reminds us of this from here is the second verse of the Guru Vashtakam. How does that go?
Ma Prabhu Kirtana Nichagita.
Yes. How go on?
Vadita Majam Manasarasena Romanchakampa Sutaranga Bajo Vandigiri Charanarayandam.
So what does that third line mean? Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita. So the chanting the holy names of Nritya, dancing, Gita, singing. Then the third line, Romancha Kampashu Tarangabajo. What is that?
Hair stands.
And tears.
Yeah. The hair standing on end, and the eyes, Tarangabajo. There's torrents of tears come from the eyes. Yeah. So this is the symptom of real love of God that the spiritual master sometimes exhibits, but usually doesn't, because usually the spiritual master, him or her, control that because they want to continue engaging in devotional service. But sometimes it breaks through and they cannot control that because it's coming from the spiritual platform. Another point made in this verse, which I found kind of interesting, is that even someone who is on this, I gave the example of a person who has gross material attractions like smoking bidis, but also there are instances where a person may actually have these spiritual symptoms, but they're actually from the spiritual level, but still they're attracted to material life. Do you have any examples of that? In other words, the question is that a person is actually progressing in spiritual life and has reached a higher level, but still there's material attraction. Any examples of that you know? Please, I'm sure you know.
Are we in that position?
You have shed tears when you're chanting, maybe secretly, I don't know. If you are, very good.
No.
Yeah, we might be. You very well might be. I'm just thinking of examples in the Shastras that might.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Bharat,
Yeah.
Bharat
Very good. Yeah. Very good. Maharaj Bharat, he left everything, and he was doing his devotions in a solitary place, and he had reached the level of bhava, but he still had some material attraction. So when the when the little deer fawn was there, needed his protection, he doted on the deer and became very, very attached to it. So that small little attraction was still there, and it brought him back again, brought him back into the material fold, at least for a couple of lifetimes.
Vishwamitra was money and so borrowing money.
Yeah, Vishwamitra had made great progress. I don't know if he had attained the stage of bhava like Maharaj Bharat, but perhaps he had. But when he heard he was meditating, and he heard the ankle bells of, who was that?
Menaka.
Menaka. He looked up, and there she was, and that was it. Finished all that. So the thing to remember there is that even a little bit of that material attraction can bring one back to the material cycle of birth and death. So the devotee in Krishna consciousness strives to become free from all material attachments by developing an attachment for Lord Krishna and his devotional service. Because on the strength of our attachment and pleasure, transcendental pleasure from serving Krishna, the more we focus on that, the material attachments fall away. Tad yasyaham anugranami harishye tadhanam shanai. And Krishna is sometimes very kind also, that for somebody who still has some material attachments, you know what he does?
He takes it away.
Yeah, he takes them away. He takes them away. So, but by the sincere efforts of the devotee, Krishna sees that and takes the remaining attachments away. So really, really important for us to somehow get a taste for Krishna's service and for chanting the holy names of the Lord, because on the strength of that taste, our progress in spiritual life will become strong, and our path back to home, back to Godhead is there. So it's very good to pray to Lord Krishna to give us a taste for devotional service and for pleasing him, and that taste, it will only come if we really know how to please Lord Krishna and the spiritual master. It's not going to come just separately from that. Comments, statements, or questions about that?
I'm thinking Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also prayed, in the Sista Sata. I think the 6th verse. Nayanam Asrudaraya Vadanam Gajara Rudaya Gira Pulakani Chitam Babu Kadatavanama Guyani Bhavishyati.
Translation.
When will tears flow constantly from my eyes, when will my voice choke up, when will the hair of my body stand on end as a recitation of your holy name? Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya, Krishna himself is praying that way. And even earlier, very good. And even earlier he said, Nam Nama Kati Bahuda, oh my Lord, you have your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living entities, and therefore you have hundreds and millions of names. Oh my Krishna, Govinda, oh my Lord, you have so kindly invested all of your potency in your holy names. But what was the last line? What's the last part? Do you remember? Come on.
But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for it.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I have no attachment. So that is the desire to actually get attachment. We are not in attached state of devotional service. So and to Krishna's service, to Krishna's holy name. So Please help me to do that. Bahu janma kariyadi shravana kirtana tabu tanapaya Krishna pade premadhan. You know the translation?
Many births I have. What is that?
Yeah.
You
Bahu
want to go
janma.
downstairs to bring things?
I have taken many births, but not developed the taste for or for love for the Godhead.
If I've taken many births of Shravanam Kirtanam, but because I'm infested with offenses, I don't get the same word premadhan, this wonderful treasure of love of Godhead, because I'm infested with chanting with the offenses while chanting. So we have to practice avoiding those offenses. Then the last part of this purport here, the Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse, and you notice there's a little difference that he added in the translation. Did you notice that? What's the difference? There's a different than
the concern is best, which causes us to become ecstatic in love of Godhead.
Yeah. So usually that religion is best, which gives people love of God. And here he added the ecstatic love of Godhead, and which is inconsistent with this verse. And then the third line, ahoituki apratihata. Ahoituki means hetu. Hetu means cause. So ahetu means no cause, which really means no material cause. There's no reason. I'm not doing this chanting or devotional service because I want to get some money. I want to get a salary. I want to get adoration or a prestige for my position in society. I want to get a good position. No. I don't want to. Lord Chaitanya said, "Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim." I don't want to do this so the opposite people of the opposite sex will appreciate me. Na janam, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janamani janmanishvare bhavatad bhakte rahaitu kitveye. I just want to do this devotional service again, birth after birth, for your pleasure. So ahaituki means no material cause, but there's a spiritual cause, which is for the pleasure of Krishna and the spiritual master. Okay, text 91.
Krishna Prabhu, real quick.
Oh, I didn't see. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I had heard Ravinda Shri Prabhu would talk about this, and I think Mother Sankita also spoke about this, that there are times when Srila Prabhupada would, cry, but it was different than what we're used to seeing. And the description was like it was like a syringe almost, like releasing water.
Yes.
I don't
Sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you could comment on that or
I wasn't present when Srila Prabhupada, had those Ashru Taranga Bhajo, those torrents of tears. But in Mayapur, there was one time when another thing is being like stopped as if dumb. And he was speaking about Lord Chaitanya, and then all of a sudden, boom, he kind of like he just stopped and was oblivious to what was going on, and it went on for maybe a minute or two, and then devotees started to chant, and so Prabhupada came back to external consciousness like that. So these things happen, yeah. Usually doesn't, but one time Prabhupada said, "I don't do that very much, do I?" But for sometimes it seemed that it was overwhelming to Srila Prabhupada because of his ecstatic emotions of remembering Lord Chaitanya. I think Balabhadra speaks about that too in Atlanta when Srila Prabhupada first went there and saw their large Gaur Nitai deities, and he was speaking about that, and similar things happened there. Anything particular you'd like to say about that or inquire about that?
No, I just this came to my mind. I thought I would just
Okay.
ask you.
You can also say one time Prabhupada was chanting Jai Radha Madhava, then his voice choked up and he stopped and just said chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
I don't know where was it.
Yeah. I mean, if you, unlike on the Veda base and other places, there's like thousands and hundreds and thousands of lectures of times, and there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 times that happened, but it did happen, and it's consistent with what Lord Chaitanya is telling Prakashananda Saraswati. Also, when Srila Prabhupada would sometimes dance, and his dancing was contagious, so much so that, like, in the auditorium in Columbus, Ohio, which is Ohio State University, is a relatively conservative university in Columbus, Ohio, and they did this was in 1969. There was a program there he did at the auditorium, and probably 1,000 students were there. So during the kirtan, Srila Prabhupada got up and danced, and everybody got up and danced, by experiencing Srila Prabhupada's ecstatic dancing. And then when he was feeling ill in Australia, we read in the Great Transcendental Adventure that he decided, oh no, he'll go to the London Ratha Yatra anyway, even though he was feeling some illness. Perhaps it was in either Australia or India, I forget. Then he went to the Ratha Yatra and he danced in ecstasy the whole way. I can't do that. I can't even come close to that. Srila Prabhupada feeling ill, he was there, but because of his ecstatic connection with Lord Chaitanya and Lord Jagannath, his nritya, and dancing in ecstasy, was there. But different examples like that.
Thank you.
So hopefully all of us will be able to dance in ecstasy in the near future if we are a little bit more careful and sincere in our devotional service, hopefully. Good. Thank you.
ভালো হইল পাইলে তুমি পরম পুরুষার্থ তোমার প্রেমেতে আমি হইলাম কৃতার্থ.
It is very good, my dear child, that you have attained the supreme goal of life by developing love of Godhead. Thus you have pleased me very much, and I am very much obliged to you. Purport. According to revealed scriptures, if a spiritual master can convert even one soul into a perfectly pure devotee, his mission in life is fulfilled. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur always used to say, even at the expense of all the properties, temples, and mutts that I have, if I could convert even one person into a pure devotee, my mission would be fulfilled. It is very difficult, however, to understand the science of Krishna, not to speak of developing love of Godhead. Therefore, if by the grace of Lord Chaitanya and the spiritual master, a disciple attains the standard of pure devotional service, the spiritual master is very happy. The spiritual master is not actually happy if the disciple brings him money. But when he sees that a disciple is following the regulative principles and advancing in spiritual life, he is very glad and feels obliged to such an advanced disciple. Acharya Prabhu has his hand up there, I see. I don't know if he's at work. There he goes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me now?
Yes.
I just wanted to bring something up from the discussion about Prabhupada's ecstasy.
Yes.
That there's an interesting description in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu about devotees on the level of Bhava Bhakti, that two devotees may be on the same level of ecstasy, the same level of Bhava Bhakti, but there are still different kinds. Some are characterized as hard-hearted and soft-hearted. Not hard-hearted in the way we think of it, but hard-hearted in the sense that they don't manifest external ecstasy very easily. And they're described as like a volcano in the ocean. A volcano is so powerful, but the ocean is still undisturbed. And then some devotees are very soft-hearted, and they're like compared like throwing a pebble into a little puddle, that they're very easily agitated to ecstasy. So both devotees may be on the same level of spiritual advancement, but some express their ecstasy very openly and very easily, and some not so openly and not so easily. So Prabhupada was very deep like that, like the deep ocean, and he didn't very often, but occasionally he would. And Rupa Goswami also said that any devotee, when the stimulus is strong enough, can be overwhelmed by ecstasy like that. But these two different types of devotees were there. And Prabhupada, I think, is a very grave type of devotee who didn't express that very often.
Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you, Acharya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Very good. So on this topic, that the spiritual master is most pleased by a devotee who attains love of Godhead or is advancing in spiritual life. There's the famous time when Srila Prabhupada in 1975 was in Atlanta, and in February, Balabhadra Prabhu speaks about this sometimes, and devotees from all over the United States had come there, particularly the Radha Damodar party, which was very famous in distributing lots and lots of books. And so Srila Prabhupada was asked, what will please you most? What will please you most? So do you happen to know what Srila Prabhupada answered?
To love Krishna.
Yeah. It was quite interesting because, of course, all the devotees who asked the question, it would seem like they wanted him to say, "Oh, distribute my books," because sometimes Prabhupada would say that. Of course, that's pleasing for him. But he said at that time, just develop your love for Krishna. So that's consistent with what Srila Prabhupada is saying here. He actually becomes happy if you and I make progress to actually become a little advanced in spiritual life, so we actually develop love for God. Statement or comments?
Isn't it love for Krishna includes everything, distributing? If you love, then you serve the devotees, you distribute the books, you follow the instructions. Isn't that included in it?
Yes. Well, love isn't just only if you say you love somebody and you neglect them, that won't be good. But so we're not saying, no, Prabhupada didn't say distribute books, no, but the essence of all services, of which book distribution is very extremely important, but the essence of all service, whether it's cleaning the temple, offering arti to the deities, giving hearing Srimad Bhagavatam class, anything, the essence of it is to the perfection of it will be if you develop love of Krishna. And if you develop love of Krishna, naturally you're going to want to sing, dance, distribute books, do all kinds of services for the spiritual master and Krishna. One more verse.
নাচো গাও ভক্ত সঙ্গে করো সংকীর্তন কৃষ্ণ নাম উপদেশী তার সর্বজন.
My dear child, continue dancing, chanting, and performing Sankirtan in association with devotees. Furthermore, go out and preach the value of chanting Krishna Nam, for by this process you will be able to deliver all fallen souls. It is another ambition of the spiritual master to see his disciples not only chant, dance, and follow the regulative principles, but also preach the Sankirtan movement to others in order to deliver them. For the Krishna consciousness movement is based on the principle that one should become as perfect as possible in devotional service oneself, and also preach the cult for others' benefit. There are two classes of unalloyed devotees, namely Goshtyanandis and Bhajananandis. Bhajananandis refers to one who is satisfied to cultivate devotional service for himself. And Goshtyanandi is one who is not satisfied simply to become perfect himself, but wants to see others also take advantage of the holy name of the Lord and advance in spiritual life. The outstanding example is Prahlad Maharaj. When he was offered a benediction by Lord Nrsimhadev, Prahlad Maharaj said, Naivo dvije paradaratya vaitaranyas tadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chitta shoche tato vimukacheta sa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharam udbhato bimudhan. My dear Lord, I have no problems and want no benediction from you because I am quite satisfied to chant your holy name. This is sufficient for me because whenever I chant, I immediately merge in an ocean of transcendental bliss. Hair standing on end, crying. Yeah. I only lament to see others bereft of your love. They are rotting in material activities for transient material pleasure and spoiling their lives, toiling all day and night simply for sense gratification with no attachment for love of Godhead. I am simply lamenting for them and devising various plans to deliver them from the clutches of Maya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 9th Chapter, 43rd verse. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains in his Anubhashya, a person who has attracted the attention of the spiritual master by his sincere service likes to dance and chant with similarly developed Krishna conscious devotees. The spiritual master authorizes such a devotee to deliver fallen souls in all parts of the world. Those who are not advanced to prefer to chant the Hare Krishna mantra in a solitary place. Such activities, in the language of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, such activities constitute, in the language of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a type of cheating process in the sense that they imitate the activities of exalted personalities like Haridas Thakur. One should not attempt to imitate such exalted devotees. Rather, everyone should endeavor to preach the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in all parts of the world and thus become successful in spiritual life. One who is not expert in preaching, one who is not very expert in preaching may chant in a secluded place, avoiding bad association, but for one who is actually advanced, preaching and meeting people who are not engaged in devotional service are not disadvantages. A devotee gives the non-devotees his association, but is not affected by their misbehavior. Thus, by the activities of a pure devotee, even those who are bereft of love of Godhead get a chance to become devotees of the Lord one day. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur advises that one discuss the verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Naitat samachare jatu manasapi hi anishvara and following the verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the following verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarhupan Yunjada Nirbandha Krishna Sambande Yuktam Vairagya Muchyate. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1 to 255. One should not imitate the activities of great personalities. One should be detached from material enjoyment and should accept everything in connection with Krishna's service. Comments or questions on this part? Is there comments, questions?
The last sentence of the purport.
Yeah.
One should not imitate. So I heard the saying, we should follow in the footsteps, but we should not imitate.
Yes.
Is that correct? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. That verse 10:33-31 in the Srimad Bhagavatam says that Anishvara means if you're not Anishvara, Ishvara is usually, it can mean God or any very, very powerful person. You shouldn't try to imitate them. Just like Lord Shiva, he drank like an ocean of poison and wasn't affected. But if you try to drink what? You try to drink a drop of poison, you're dead. So, isn't it? So this verse was spoken by Shukadev Goswami in relation to Lord Krishna's dancing with the unmarried gopis or the gopis in the rasa dance. Even in mind, one shouldn't try to imitate those activities. So Krishna showed in some ways, he showed he is God. So he could have 16,100. You can't even, it's very difficult even to have one wife, but 16,108 because he's God. The distinction is there. We cannot imitate those activities, but follow their instructions. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja. Give up all varieties of religion and surrender to me. But you say, hey, wait a minute. You had 16,108 wives. I want 16,108 wives. No, that's imitation. Follow their footsteps and instructions. So particularly in this case, my understanding is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is quoting this verse because he is encouraging us not to imitate who? Who's he saying not to imitate?
Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva.
No.
Haridas
Advanced devotee.
That's right. Haridas Thakur. He chanted the holy name in a secluded place for a long time. So in this time, in this age, not to try to imitate him. He was a special personality. There's some exceptions, but generally speaking, not to go to a secluded place and chant the holy names. Usually, there's a song that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote, saying that most of the time that such persons are just looking for adoration from others. So in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, even though they maintained a ashram at Radha Kund, he didn't want his disciples to become Babajis there in Radha Kund. You know that?
Yeah.
So he wanted them primarily to chanting and following. Sometimes, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would go there and stay there for a month or 2 months, but not to become a person who simply chants in a solitary place. In fact, one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers had a disciple who decided to go to Radha Kund to chant like a Babaji. And because of that, the spiritual master rejected him. Very interesting. So in this verse, it's recommended, yes, chant, dance. This doesn't mean that you can't chant japa by yourself sometimes. That's not what it means. But as a shutting yourself off from other persons, not having association of devotees won't be successful in your spiritual life. Other thoughts or comments?
Very hard to get a secluded place anymore.
That's true. Well, there are places in the Himalayas, but I don't think there's cell phone reception there.
When the whole point is to connect with Lord Krishna, why are all these simple rituals given more importance? The rituals and the intricacies of how you do things, because what is more important is your connection to Lord Krishna, right? As long as you connect on a personal level,
It's not simple.
Yeah, how do you connect on a personal level? You connect by following these principles of chanting the holy names. One can imagine that one's connected, but the practical method is, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam. Those who are actually connected with me, they're engaging in my service. They're engaged in my satata yuktanam. They're always engaged in my service. So yoga, as you know, yoga means to connect. There are different types of yoga, but this the topmost yoga that Lord Krishna himself recommends is bhakti yoga, which means connecting to Lord Krishna by serving him. And it's true that one can do services without thinking about it, without much understanding or thought. So it's recommended that one, when one does one service, remember that one's doing it for Krishna. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha. Lord Krishna said to Arjun, continue to fight, but always think of me. Understand, you're doing it for me. I want you to fight. So similarly, when doing devotional activities, it's helpful. It's very important for us to remember that it's not just carrying out those particular activities, but doing it for the service of Krishna. Rupa Goswami says 6 things mess up or destroy devotional service. Atyahara, how does it go? Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo namagraha janasangas chalolyam cha shadbir bhaktir vinashyati. Atyahara means
Too much.
overeating, which you can eat too many different kinds of things, non-veg, etc., or eating more than necessary, or collecting more than prayasas, over endeavor for material gain, prayasascha, prajalpo, material talk, gossip, backbiting, prayasascha, prajalpo, niyamagraha. And niyamagraha means not performing the rules and regulations, vaidhi bhakti, not doing it, or doing it without without any understanding of the purpose, doing it in a ritualistic way. Just like now, it's even though it's May, it's a little cold. So, sometimes at the beginning of May, the pujaris on the altar add, during the arti?
A fan?
Peacock
Yeah,
fan.
the peacock fan.
Peacock fan.
But if it's cold outside, why would you do the peacock if it's cold? You don't want to do the peacock fan because that's just a ritual. It's just a ritual. So yeah, so the rituals are there if it's vaidhi, but the rituals are intended to please Krishna, to serve Krishna, not just for no reason at all. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vishnugata Prabhu.
Thank you all Prabhus and Matajis and Prabhus also.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So tonight we have our Bhagavad Gita happy hour, 5 o'clock to 5:30. If you can, please tune in for that. The same Zoom channel. Hare Krishna. Everyone have a wonderful Krishna conscious day.
Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhe eva cha
Patitanam
patritanam
pavanebhyo
vaishnavebhyo
vaishnavebhyo
namo
namo
namaha.
namaha.
Namo Namah.
Antakoti
Hare
Vaishnava
Krishna. Thank
Rishikesh
you. Hare
Prabhupada
Krishna.
ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.